The fortune teller said my sister is a lucky star, while I am a disaster star, so my mother fed me pet milk powder, dressed me in rough fabric, and meticulously raised me to die in the crib. When I opened my eyes again, I used the cheat code given to me by the king of hell, my little face flushed with effort. Daddy, Mommy wants to kill me. Dad hadn't yet snapped out of it when the lucky star sister beside him suddenly turned over, her voice even colder than mine. What my sister said is true. Mom not only wanted to kill her, but also planned to use my good fortune in exchange for her own prosperity and wealth in the next life. After saying that, my sister gave a thumbs up with her chubby little hand. My mom completely exploded. Dad's arms holding me suddenly stiffened, almost dropping me. Those hands that never trembled even when signing billion-dollar contracts were now shaking like a sieve. As soon as I finished saying those words to my sister, the golden fingers effect wore off. The power that had been supporting my speech instantly vanished. I opened my mouth, but could only make sounds. I turned to look at my sister, who was also staring coldly at Dad, then blew a milk bubble. Simon, did you hear that? Mom, Kathy, was pale as a ghost, still holding that milk powder can with the cartoon kitten print, her whole body swaying unsteadily. Are they possessed by ghosts? How can newborn babies talk? She reacted quickly, immediately transforming her fear and hatred into fragility, tears coming on cue as she rushed over to cling to her father's arm. Husband, I'm so scared, this child is too sinister. That master was right, the younger one is a calamity, a vengeful ghost come to claim lives. Look, she's already trying to frame me right after being born. But her father paid her no mind. He looked down at me in his arms, then glanced at my sister lying cold-faced on the bed. Those two sentences just now were clear, logical, and carried the emotions of an adult. It definitely wasn't an auditory hallucination. Dad's voice grew heavy. Hand it over. Mom was taken aback. What? The milk powder can in your hand? Mom instinctively hid the can behind her back. This is just ordinary goat milk powder. Simon, don't listen to that filthy thing's nonsense. I'm their biological mother. How could I ever harm them? I was so anxious I wanted to roll my eyes. Dear Dad, why aren't you grabbing it? In my past life, I drank this until my intestines necrotized. Every time I went to the hospital, when the doctor asked what I had been eating, my mother would say I was fed the best imported milk powder. Who would have thought that the wife of the richest man would feed her own daughter pet milk? Seeing that Dad was still hesitating, I hardened my heart. Though I couldn't speak, I could still move. I suddenly kicked my legs, mustering all my strength, and slapped my dad across the face. Then, pointing at the jar in my mom's hand, I burst into loud, wailing cries, crying her heart out. My sister, standing nearby, played along seamlessly. Though she didn't cry, she looked at my mom with a gaze that seemed to say, "You're trash." Then she turned her head away and made a gagging motion. Dad finally moved, snatching the can of milk powder from Mom's hand. It was all in English, but he was a graduate of an Ivy League school. It was a high-end pet brand's goat milk formula specifically for kittens, and the ingredient list even included appetite stimulants. Dad's voice was icy cold, sending a chill down one's spine as he forced the words through gritted teeth. Kathy, is this the special formula you prepared for the babies? Mom panicked, tears falling in large drops. What? This really is pet milk? Honey, I don't understand English. The shopping agent told me this is the most expensive and best one. So of course I want to buy the best for our babies. Dad was so angry he laughed. Were you studying on Mars during those 3 years abroad? I've forgotten most of it. Pregnancy brain lasts 3 years, you know. Mom tried to play it off with a cute act, reaching out to hold me. Honey, give me the baby. I'll have someone change the formula right away. I really didn't mean to. The hand she extended had long, sharp nails, each one studded with diamonds. I shuddered all over, clutching the collar of Dad's shirt tightly and refusing to let go. I'm not going. Whoever wants to go can go. If I fall into her hands again, all the wealth and glory of this life will be gone. Seeing my resistance, a flicker of malice flashed in Mother's eyes, but it vanished in an instant, replaced by a look of grievance. You see, this child just doesn't feel close to me. A jinx is a jinx, born to bring misfortune to her mother. At that moment, my sister, who had been motionless all along, suddenly moved. She struggled to turn over, then, right in front of Dad, she extended her chubby middle finger toward Mom. Dad was stunned, and so was I. In my previous life, I was never close to my sister. My mother always told me from a young age that my sister had taken everything from me. My sister was the beneficiary, enjoying princess-like treatment while I suffered, so I hated and resented her. turning and running away whenever I saw her, until the moment before my death. I only vaguely felt that something was off. Could what my mother said really be true? Looking back now, nothing was as simple as it seemed. Perhaps my sister was right. My mother truly had designs on her good fortune. Is this also a coincidence? Dad stared at his daughter's perfectly formed middle finger, feeling his entire worldview begin to crumble. Mom was enraged by that middle finger. She let out a sharp scream. See? I told you it's an evil spirit. What normal baby would make such a vulgar gesture? She rushed forward, ready to strike the baby. Dad stepped aside to block her. Enough. Send both children to the old house and let Mom look after them. My mom disagreed and screamed, no, they're still so young, they can't be away from their mother. I misspoke just now. They're both my children, and I must take care of them. Dad slammed the formula can heavily onto the ground, white powder exploding everywhere. How are you going to take care of them? Feed them pet milk? Kathy, I will have someone investigate what just happened with the two children, even if I have to hire the top brain specialists, or even masters of metaphysics. I will get to the bottom of it, but until it's all cleared up, don't you dare lay a finger on them again. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I wiped my runny nose all over my dad's expensive suit. I'm definitely going to cling to this thigh. That very night, my sister and I were packed up and sent to the mountaintop villa, to our grandparents' place. It was a true case of the wealthy family being as deep as the sea, but also the safest place. Grandfather Tom Smith, a descendant of the founding fathers, was a man of unwavering integrity. Grandma Wendy Smith was a true lady of noble birth, with a strong and resolute character. In my previous life, Mom always prevented Grandma and Grandpa from seeing us, claiming we were too frail to be exposed to the wind. In truth, she was afraid the bruises on our bodies would be discovered. When we arrived at the old mansion, my sister and I were placed side by side on that priceless small-leaf sandalwood crib. We were surrounded by a circle of nannies and childcare workers. Grandma, wearing her reading glasses, looked at the can of kitten formula that Dad had brought back, her hands trembling with anger. Utterly absurd. If word gets out, the Smith family's reputation will be completely ruined. Grandpa snorted coldly. Investigate, find out who this so-called master is, who bought the formula, and who that woman has been meeting with recently. Get to the bottom of it all. With these two formidable figures taking charge, my little life was pretty much saved. When only my sister and I were left in the room, I turned to look at her. She was also looking at me, though we couldn't speak. It seemed that by focusing our attention, we could communicate through our thoughts. Probably another little perk left behind by the king of hell. I said, sis, you came back too. Sister said, I said, in your past life, did you live well? Sister's eyes dimmed for an instant, then turned sharp. She extended her small hand, covering the back of mine, warm. In the eyes of outsiders, she always called me a lucky star, but when no one was around, she called me a little bastard. Dealing with you is the first step, making me a sacrifice is the second. What she hopes for most is for us to turn on each other, saving her the trouble. The woman said, if it weren't for the fortune teller's prediction that I could bring her good luck in her next life, I probably would have died long ago. She said if I don't behave well, she'll strangle you. So the reason my sister never dared to resist was because of me. I was her hostage. My heart ached with a pang of sorrow. I turned my hand to hold my sister's, and grinned. Don't worry, sis, in this lifetime, we'll work together and strip that crazy woman bare, leaving her with nothing. Okay, the king of hell gave me quite a few cheat codes, but the price is that after this life, I have to help the underworld get connected to the internet. I've already agreed, so don't be afraid, this time. Big sister will definitely protect you. With tears welling up in my eyes, I looked at my sister, my small hand unconsciously reaching out to touch her. Early the next morning, the door of the old house was knocked on. Kathy, accompanied by an old man dressed in Taoist robes, knelt at the main gate, wailing and crying to the heavens, Mom, Dad, you can't take the child away. It's a piece of my own flesh and blood, and that little one truly is a harbinger of disaster. If we don't perform a ritual to drive out the evil spirits, it will bring ruin upon the entire family. Her commotion drew out all the wealthy neighbors from the surrounding area. The people living in this area are all prominent figures. Everyone pointed and whispered from behind the fence. Grandma, who valued face above all else, scowled and ordered them to let her in. As soon as Kathy stepped inside, she fell to her knees with a thud, weeping as if her heart would break. Mom, I know it was wrong of me to give Sweetie the wrong formula, but I was truly deceived. What mother wouldn't feel heartbroken for her child? but the master said that Sweetie's birth chart is entirely an extremely ominous sign. If I don't take him back to suppress it, the Smith family's fortune will be cut off. The old man with a goatee pretentiously spun a compass around before finally pointing to the second floor where my sister and I were. If you don't entrust him to this humble Taoist to take back and perform rituals, I'm afraid the Smith family will face a bloody disaster. Grandpa was so angry he smashed his teacup. What era is this, and you're still promoting feudal superstitions? Get out. But Kathy clung tightly to Grandpa's leg. Dad, it's better to believe it than not. Jinx&My saw it too yesterday. A newborn baby can talk and even flip the middle finger. Is that normal? That's clearly a sign of being possessed by an evil spirit. This statement left both Grandpa and Grandma at a loss for words. Indeed, this matter is just too bizarre. Even Dad remained silent on the side. Clearly, yesterday's scene had left him with a psychological shadow. Seeing everyone waver, a flicker of triumph flashed in Kathy's eyes. She stood up, wanting to rush upstairs. I'll go bring the child down for the master to see right now. No, I absolutely cannot go with her. At that moment, the nanny happened to be carrying my sister and me downstairs. Kathy rushed over and tried to snatch me away. Give me that, Jinx. Her nails were almost digging into my flesh. At that moment, my sister, who had been quiet all along, suddenly burst into a loud wah and started crying. Her crying was earth-shattering, and as she cried, she forcefully threw something she was holding in her hand at the old Taoist priest. It was a golden longevity lock, given by my grandmother, pure gold, heavy as death. My sister's aim was impeccable. With a loud thud, it struck right between the old Taoist priest's eyebrows. Ouch! The old Taoist let out a miserable cry, clutching his forehead as he stumbled back several steps, blood trickling down between his fingers. I was stunned. In just an instant, my sister seemed to have turned back into an ordinary baby. Good sister, king of hell. You've opened the back door for my sister and paved a path straight to the heavens. Grandma watched this scene, her gaze shifting. Grandma sneered. So this is the enlightened monk you invited? Is this all he's capable of? The old Taoist clutched his head, furious and flustered. This is proof of the malevolent ghost's ferocity. This child possesses immense strength, far from ordinary. Bullshit. Dad finally spoke. He walked over, picked up the longevity lock, and looked at his sister again. Sister had stopped crying by now, blinking her big eyes and looking at Dad with an innocent expression, even reaching out her little hands for a hug. Dad's heart melted instantly. He picked up his sister and turned to look at Kathy and the Taoist priest. My daughter, being strong is a sign of good health. She takes after me. Dad pointed at the Taoist priest. As for you, do you have a license? Which temple are you from? Has the tax bureau checked on you? The richest man is indeed the richest man. His approach is always so refreshingly unconventional. The Taoist's expression changed. I am a transcendent being from beyond this world. Dad waved his hand at the bodyguard. That means operating without a license. Fraud. Take him to the police station, and while you're at it, check his financial dealings with Madam. Upon hearing about the account check, Kathy's face turned ashen. She stared at me with a venomous glare, her eyes as poisonous as a snake's. You'll regret this, keeping this, Jinx. The Smith family is doomed sooner or later. I lay in the nanny's arms, making a face at her. Naya, 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 serves you right. After this commotion, my grandparents saw right through Kathy's true colors and had her and that charlatan escorted out. Not only did they not perform any exorcism on my sister and me, but they actually increased security to the point where not even a fly could get in. My sister and I began living the true life of wealthy heiresses. We had 8 nannies taking turns attending to us. Our bathtubs were diamond encrusted, our diapers were custom made, and even the paper used to wipe our bottoms was made of real silk. My sister and I have only 3 daily tasks: eat, sleep, and count money. Grandma loves giving gold, while Grandpa prefers gifting shares. My sister is more composed than I am. Besides eating and sleeping, she spends her days watching the nannies. If any nanny dares to slack off or has sticky fingers, she cries. Grandma always hits the mark with her checks. Gradually, the whole family came to know that the eldest daughter had a sharp gaze and rarely smiled, while the second daughter was the complete opposite, naive, sweet, and always smiling at everyone, to the point where it made people uneasy. In the blink of an eye, the full moon celebration arrived. As the hostess, Kathy, despite the earlier embarrassment, still had to attend since she hadn't yet divorced. She was dressed to the nines today, and as soon as she arrived, she forcibly took my sister from the nanny's arms. Grace, Mommy's little lucky star, you must make Mommy proud today. She planted a kiss on my sister's face. leaving behind a red lipstick mark. My sister frowned in disgust and tried to struggle free, but Kathy tightly held her sister's waist, whispering something into her ear in a low voice. Her sister's movements instantly froze. My heart sank, and I grew extremely anxious, but I was held in my grandmother's arms, too far away. The banquet began, the guests gathered around to play with the child. Kathy held her sister, looking every bit the doting mother. Our Grace is the sweetest, always smiling at everyone. Unlike some children, she glanced meaningfully in my direction. I rolled my eyes, not bothering to respond to her. Just then, a noblewoman pointed at my sister's arm in surprise. "Mrs. Sue. Why is there a bruise on this child's arm?" All eyes in the room instantly focused on it. Kathy feigned surprise as she lifted her sister's sleeve. To her shock, there were several bruises on her sister's fair, delicate forearm, as if someone had pinched her. Kathy covered her mouth, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. What happened? Who did this? She suddenly turned to look at me, her eyes filled with fear and anger. Is it the younger sister? I just saw the younger sister grabbing the older sister's hand and wouldn't let go. How can this child be so malicious? At such a young age, she already knows to be jealous that her older sister is a lucky star, and she would do something so cruel. The guests' gazes toward me changed. Although the idea of a baby hitting someone sounds absurd, the bruise was undeniably there, and just now, only my sister and I were in the nursery. To be this wicked at such a young age. What will become of you when you grow up? I heard this is that legendary harbinger of misfortune, truly sinister, even hitting your own sister. The sound of discussion surged like a tide. Grandma's face turned ashen. Kathy, you need to speak with evidence. Little Treasure is only a month old, and her nails are trimmed clean. How could she possibly leave such bruises? Kathy cried out. Mom, you've always favored Little Treasure, and now with clear evidence, you still want to protect her. This is Grace we're talking about, the lucky star of our Smith family. What if she's cursed to death by this Jinx? Her move was truly insidious. Dad walked over, looking at the wound on my sister's arm, his brow furrowed tightly. Go and pull up the surveillance footage. Kathy spoke up first. I already had someone check earlier. The surveillance in the nursery was struck by lightning last night. This is fate. Even the heavens don't want this evil spirit to hide any longer. Just as I was thinking about how to break the deadlock, my sister, who was being held in Kathy's arms, suddenly moved. My sister raised her bruised little hand and made a move in front of everyone. She grabbed the diamond necklace worth millions around Kathy's neck. Then, with a forceful tug, the diamonds scattered all over the floor. As the necklace snapped, a tiny, button-like object fell out from the deep V-neck of Kathy's dress and rolled onto the ground. Kathy's face was deathly pale. In her previous life, Kathy often brought her sister to various social events in the world of fame and fortune. To monitor her sister's every move, she had made it a habit to place listening devices either on herself or on her sister. Her sister's inner thoughts had revealed that this was the idea of that master. He claimed that by giving him these recordings and videos, along with offerings, Kathy's financial luck could be boosted. She was absolutely convinced of this. My sister pointed at the black button, letting out a frantic, aha sound as she looked at Dad. Dad reacted instantly, bending down to pick up the object. Kathy's face turned pale, and she lunged forward like a madwoman, but Dad had already pressed the play button. From the loudspeaker came Kathy's vicious and harsh voice. Grace Smith, whether you're a demon or not, listen up. If you dare not cooperate with me when we go out later, I'll break your sister's fingers one by one. If you dare to give it away, I'll throw your sister into the back mountain to feed the wolves. There was also the teeth-gritting sound of pinching flesh, accompanied by the baby's muffled grunts. The truth was out. Those who had just accused me now had their faces swollen with shame, looking at Kathy with eyes full of fear and disgust. Grandma trembled with rage, walked over, and with a sharp slap, delivered a hard blow to Kathy's face. You beast! Even a vicious tiger doesn't harm its own cubs. How could you do such a cruel thing to Grace just to frame Sweetie? Kathy was struck so hard her head snapped to the side, blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. With the evidence irrefutable, she could no longer keep up the act. She stopped crying, stopped begging for mercy, and instead suddenly burst into wild, hysterical laughter. Ha 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 ha, yes, it was me who strangled him. So what? She raised her head, her gaze filled with venom as she stared at my sister and me. These two little bitches should never have been born in the first place. They stole Simon's attention, they stole my position in the Smith family. What's the use of having children? My figure is ruined. I have to breastfeed them, I have to serve them. I am the mistress of the Smith family. I am the one Simon loves most. Simon, look at me, I'm Choo-Choo, we used to love each other so much. How long has it been since you've looked at me properly since these two burdens came along? She crawled toward her father, trying to grab his pant leg. Her father took a step back, his eyes filled only with disgust and resolve. Kathy, you are utterly beyond redemption. I will file for divorce and sue you for child abuse. You'll spend the rest of your life behind bars. No. I won't get divorced. I'm Mrs. Sue. Even in death, I'll be a ghost of the Smith family, Kathy screamed, suddenly springing up from the ground. She pulled a sharp hairpin from her hair, custom-made to match her gown, crafted from pure gold, its tip incredibly sharp. Die, since you won't let me live in peace, then no one gets to live, especially you, you Jinx. Her face twisted with rage as she raised a hairpin and lunged fiercely toward me, who was being held by my grandmother. The sudden turn of events happened too quickly. The bodyguard was 2 steps away, Dad was shielding my sister, Grandma was holding me, her aged body simply couldn't react in time. The cold gleam of the golden hairpin expanded infinitely in my pupils. After finally getting a second chance at life, before I could even start making money, was I going to die at the hands of this madwoman? I refused to accept this. At this critical moment, a red light suddenly emerged from my sister's clothes. And then the large screen in the banquet hall lit up. On the screen, which was supposed to play a video of blessings for the full moon, a scene appeared. In the footage, Kathy was kneeling on the ground, begging for mercy from a man. The man was wearing a white lab coat and holding a DNA test report in his hand. Doctor, I beg you, change this report. The Smith family must not find out that these 2 children are not Simon Smith's. As long as you help me cover this up. Once I get my hands on the Smith family's wealth, I'll give you half. The entire room instantly froze. Even Kathy, who was holding the hairpin, stiffened in place, turning her head in disbelief to look at the large screen. We are not the children of the Smith family at all. But the real bombshell was yet to come. The screen flickered, and the scene switched. This time, it was Kathy on the phone. Hello, Brother Wong, don't worry. That fool Simon Smith is completely fooled by me. Even though those 2 money-losing kids aren't his, as long as I don't say anything, who would know? Once I deal with the old one and get rid of the little one, everything in the Smith family will be ours. Then, the 3 of us can run far away together. This isn't just infidelity. This is about wiping out the entire Smith family. Dad's face could no longer be described as green, it was a riotous, multicolored black. Grandpa clutched his chest, nearly fainting on the spot. I was utterly dumbfounded. Where did this video come from? I turned to look at my sister. She was leaning against our father's chest, holding a miniature remote control in her hand. I had no idea when she had picked it up, and was pointing it toward the large screen. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of her lips. Was that the universal projector from Grandpa's study? What exactly had my sister been through? Why did she have so many cheat codes? This didn't match what the King of Hell had promised me. At that moment, Kathy completely broke down. It's all fake, it's AI, someone is trying to frame me. She brandished her hairpin, stabbing wildly like a madwoman. Who dares to harm me? I'll kill you all. She no longer had the mind to kill me, turning around to flee. But this time, no one would give her another chance. Over a dozen bodyguards rushed forward, pinning her firmly to the ground. The golden hairpin fell to the floor with a crisp, ringing sound. It sounded just like the shattering of her dream of marrying into wealth. Her father walked up to her, looking down at her from above with a gaze colder than that reserved for a stranger. Kathy, is that DNA report real? Pinned to the ground, her face pressed against the cold marble, Kathy continued to struggle. It's fake, Simon, I love you, the child is yours. I only said that to deceive the doctor. Let's just test it and find out. Grandfather caught his breath, leaning on his cane as he walked over, his voice as imposing as a mountain. Now, immediately, right away, test the DNA, not only Simon's, but also those 2 other men's. The Smith family will never raise someone else's children. Kathy collapsed completely to the ground, her face ashen. I turned to look at my sister. My sister was looking at me, her gaze firm, even carrying a hint of reassurance. She winked at me, as if to say, don't panic, the best is yet to come. In less than 3 hours. That thin piece of paper was delivered into Grandpa's hands. Those 3 hours were the most agonizing moments of my life. I lay on the leather sofa, praying to every god of wealth I could think of in my heart. It must be my own child. If it's not my own, I'll have no choice but to beg on the streets. Although my sister seems resourceful, with a burden like me tagging along, she still can't survive in the wealthy circles. Kathy was tied up and thrown in a corner, still muttering, "Simon. I didn't mean it either, that day was an accident." Finally, Grandpa's trembling hands opened the report. Dad sat across, his hands tightly clasped, knuckles red from the strain. No, they were clenched into fists, veins bulging on the back of his hands. He stared at that piece of paper as if waiting for a verdict. Grandpa finished reading, suddenly looked up, his gaze complex as he turned toward Kathy in the corner. Then, he flung the report violently into Kathy's face. "Look for yourself, you fool." Kathy struggled to take a look. The next second, her eyes nearly popped out of her head, and she let out a sharp scream. "Impossible, this is absolutely impossible." I was anxious too. I stood on my tiptoes, stretching my neck to get a better look. Dad walked over, picked up the report, glanced at it, and as if all his strength had been drained in an instant, he slumped into the chair. Then, suddenly, he started laughing. He laughed until tears streamed down his face. "Good, very good, Kathy. You are a complete and utter joke." Dad showed the report to everyone. I saw it clearly too, supporting Simon Smith as the biological father of Grace Smith and Tina Smith, probability 9,999%. My dream of marrying into a wealthy family is secure. I was so excited I almost knelt down and kowtowed to Dad on the spot. Meanwhile, Kathy completely broke down. How could it be his? It was clearly Brother Wang's. I calculated the days, Kathy muttered to herself, her mind already somewhat unhinged. "Because you're stupid." My sister lay beside me and suddenly spat out a cold remark. The voice was very soft, only audible to me and Kathy. Kathy suddenly looked up, staring into her sister's ice-cold eyes as if she had seen a ghost. Grandfather gave the order, "Take her away, hand her over to the police, investigate every single one of her disgraceful deeds, one by one, and don't let that Wang fellow off either." Kathy was dragged away. Before leaving, she clung desperately to the doorframe, looking at her father, tears of remorse streaming from her eyes. "Simon, I was wrong, for the sake of the child." Father turned coldly away, his back to her. "Mention the child, look at yourself and see if you even deserve to." Kathy went to prison. That so-called Brother Wang was also sent in by Dad's thunderous methods to keep her company. It said that Brother Wang confessed in the interrogation room, admitting he never intended to stay with Kathy long-term. He just saw her as naive, rich, and easy to fool. A few sweet words and she believed the child was his, then transferred large sums of money to him, the moment Kathy learned the truth in prison. It said she fainted from rage on the spot and went mad when she woke up, but that's a story for later. The atmosphere in the Smith family home was rather heavy these days. Although that venomous woman had been driven away, Father was clearly deeply affected. Indeed, anyone who discovered that their spouse had been treating them like a fool while abusing their own child would be left questioning everything. He shut himself in his study all day, smoking one cigarette after another. Grandma and Grandpa were anxiously pacing around, worried he might do something drastic. My sister and I lay in the cradle, holding an urgent consultation about the matter. I said, "Sis, it seems like Dad is depressed." Sister said, "Yeah, when a love-struck brain suffers a major blow, the recovery period tends to be longer." I said, "That won't do. If he gets depressed, who's going to earn money for me to spend? Who's going to support the Smith family's business empire? My assets will shrink." My sister rolled her eyes at me. "All you ever think about is money." I said, "Of course, I was scared of being poor in my past life. Sis, think of something, will you?" My sister looked at me and suddenly revealed a meaningful smile. She pointed toward the study, then pointed at me. I said, "What?" Sister said, "You go." I said, "Why should I go? I don't know how to do psychological counseling either." Older sister said, "You just need to be responsible for being cute. He's a daughter's slave. And you're the healing type." "Perfect," I said, "for my billions in family fortune, I'll give it my all." So, when the nanny carried my sister and me into the study, I began my performance. The study was filled with swirling smoke. Dad, with a stubbly beard, sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, staring blankly outside. Hearing the commotion, he glanced back at us, his eyes filled with exhaustion and guilt. "Take them away. Don't let the smoke bother the children." The nanny was about to step back. Suddenly, I stretched out both hands toward my father, exclaiming, "Ah, ah." The sound was clear and full of longing. My father was taken aback for a moment. I continued to wave my little hands, making a "hug me" gesture, while squeezing out a bright smile on my face, drooling all over the place. Father's eyes flickered. He stubbed out his cigarette, hurried over, wiped his hands on his clothes in a flustered manner, and then carefully took me into his arms. "Sweetie, do you mind that daddy is dirty?" I threw my arms around his neck and planted a firm kiss on his stubbly cheek. Pop, not only did I kiss him, I also rubbed my face against his beard, giggling all the while. Dad froze. Several seconds later, I felt a warm, wet liquid drip onto my shoulder. This man, who dominates the business world, held me in his arms and cried like a child. "I'm sorry, it's my fault for being blind, for not protecting you all," he sobbed in my ear. I stretched out my chubby little hand and clumsily patted his back. It's okay, a father who can admit his mistakes is a good father. As long as you work hard to earn money, we can still be a loving family." My sister, held by the nanny, stood nearby watching this scene, a slight smile curling at the corner of her mouth. After this deep father-daughter bond act, Dad finally pulled himself together. He channeled all his hatred for Kathy into doting on us and the ruthless determination he wielded in the business world. He vowed to build a more solid empire for us, so we could strut through life with our heads held high. I was quite satisfied. The dead of night, my sister and I lay side by side in the crib, after confirming that there was no one around and no surveillance. I finally couldn't hold back and asked the question that had been on my mind. I turned over, looked at my sister, and frantically asked in my heart. I said, "Sis, where did that video come from, and that recording? Didn't Kathy destroy the surveillance?" Sister closed her eyes, as if resting her spirit. Sister said, "In my past life, I died later than you." I was taken aback. Sister said, "After you died, Kathy did not fare well. She squandered the Smith family's fortune, and that man surnamed Wong ran off with the money. She fell into poverty and eventually went mad, before her death. She kept muttering about these things and even revealed where she had hidden her belongings." Sister opened her eyes, her gaze so profound it seemed unlike that of an infant. Older sister said, "I've been drifting in that house all along, watching her get her comeuppance. All that evidence was something she hid herself in a cloud backup. The password is her birthday." I said, "Then how were you able to play it at the banquet?" Older sister said, "The first thing I did after being reborn was to press Dad's phone a few times while he was holding me. His phone is connected to the home's smart system. I sent the cloud link to the projection system. As for playing it, that was something I begged the King of Hell to help with. Originally, I had become a vengeful ghost, but I stubbornly held on by myself, almost scattering into nothingness." He said I had helped him keep his KPI, so he could lend a small hand at a critical moment. I was left speechless. "So the red light I saw was actually—" I said, "Then how did you know the recorder was there?" Sister said, "That was her habit. In her previous life, every time she hit me, she liked to record it. The pendant of that necklace was a specially made recording device, a protective umbrella she had custom-made for herself." I shivered. "Pervert, what a pair of perverts." I said, "Sis, you're amazing. I'm following you from now on." My sister turned her head, looking at me, her gaze softening. My sister said, "This lifetime, I'll protect you." My sister said, "You just focus on being happy and counting money. I'll handle all the dirty and tiring work." Moved to tears, I leaned over and nuzzled my face against hers. I said, "Sis, you're the best. So, about my share of the milk powder money, could you work a little harder to make it grow?" My sister said, "Get lost." Time flew by swiftly. In the blink of an eye, my sister and I turned 8. The names of the Smith family's twin daughters were renowned throughout the entire Beijing social circle. I'm the notorious money grubber. At the 1-year-old grab ceremony, other kids grabbed pens and seals. I skipped all those pretentious things, plopped myself right in the middle of the pile of gold bars and checks, grabbed a gold bar with my left hand and a black card with my right, grinning from ear to ear. My dad beamed with joy beside me. Good, practical, just like me. As for my sister, she is famously aloof and a genius. When she was 1 year old and had to choose an object to predict her future, she grabbed a keyboard. Now, at 8 years old, she can skillfully operate a tablet, and I often see her typing out complex lines of code on the screen. On the weekend, Dad brought that gentle aunt when home. Her name is Lucy, and just like her name suggests, her temperament is gentle and graceful. Resembling an orchid secluded in a quiet valley, I heard she is a history professor at a prestigious university, not only highly intelligent but also from a family of scholars. My sister and I sat on the sofa, like two door gods, scrutinizing this future family member. Dad was a bit nervous, constantly rubbing his hands. "Lucy, this is Grace and Tina." Aunt Lucy smiled. But unlike other women who wanted to curry favor with Dad, she didn't immediately rush over to hug us and shower us with kisses. or exclaim exaggeratedly, "My little darlings." She simply crouched down, bringing her eyes level with ours, maintaining a polite social distance. "Hello there, I'm Lucy, it's our first time meeting, so I brought you a little gift." She took 2 boxes out of her bag. My eyes lit up. The box wasn't big, and it didn't look like it contained jewelry or accessories. The one handed to her sister was a thick book. Her sister's originally indifferent face visibly brightened. She took the book, gently stroked the cover with her fingers, then looked up at Lucy and nodded, saying, "Thank you, I really like it." "Got one?" Then, Aunt Lucy handed me another heavy box. I opened it with great anticipation. Wow, it's a miniature version of the "Along the River During the Qingming Festival" ornament, crafted entirely from pure gold. The craftsmanship is exquisite, and it has a substantial weight. It looks incredibly valuable at first glance, holding the gold. I was so moved that I nearly shed 2 streams of wide noodle tears. What is a true friend? This is what you call a true confidant, compared to those aunties who give Barbie dolls and frilly dresses. Aunt Lucy really gets me, I sweetly called out. "Auntie, you have such great taste." "Dad has such great taste too." Dad let out a long sigh of relief beside me. Later, our family of 4 lived a life that everyone envied. Time flowed like water, and in the blink of an eye, my sister and I turned 18. On the day of our coming-of-age ceremony, the Smith family mansion was bustling with excitement. Though my father's temples were slightly frosted with gray, he remained spirited and vigorous. Aunt Lucy stood serenely by my father's side, like a cup of rich, mellow tea. My sister and I, dressed in custom-made gowns, stood at the top of the staircase on the 2nd floor. My sister had grown into a graceful and elegant young woman, her cool, aloof demeanor even more pronounced than before. With a pair of gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose, she exuded the aura of a sophisticated intellectual, or rather, a high-achieving academic. As for me, I had a deceptively sweet face, with 2 faint dimples that appeared when I smiled. "Sis, I just checked today's gift list." I lowered my voice, my eyes sparkling with the glint of money. "Mr. James gifted a yacht, Mr. Lee gave a seaside villa, and Mr. Wong was the most practical. He directly sent 50 million in startup funds. We're rich." "We're rich." My sister helplessly adjusted her glasses. "Tina Smith, your net worth is already over 10 billion, can't you have a little more dignity?" "Whoever complains about having too much money," I declared with righteous indignation. "Besides, this is my coming-of-age gift, my first bucket of independent gold." "All right, let's go down now." My sister linked her arm with mine. "Mom and Dad are waiting for us." We slowly descended the stairs. All the spotlights were trained on us. Dad looked at us, his eyes slightly moist. He picked up the microphone, his voice choked with emotion. 18 years ago, I almost lost these 2 precious ones. 18 years later, seeing them standing before me so outstandingly, I, Simon Smith, have no regrets in this life. Starting today, I will transfer 30% of the Smith Group's shares to Grace and 30% to Tina. The audience erupted in an uproar. "This is an astronomical price," Dad continued. "Lucy, my wife. Although we signed a prenuptial agreement, I voluntarily give half of the remaining shares under my name to her." Aunt Lucy looked at Dad in surprise, wanting to refuse, but Dad held her hand. "This is what you deserve. Over the years, it was you who brought warmth to this family." Watching this scene, my heart felt warm. Although I had given away some money, I didn't feel the slightest bit of regret, because Aunt Lucy was worth it. Just then, an unexpected guest suddenly rushed to the entrance of the banquet hall. That was a ragged, mad old woman. Although 18 years had passed, I recognized that nauseating gaze at a glance. Kathy, she was actually still alive. "She's out of prison," she was shouting. "I am Mrs. Smith. Those 2 are my daughters. That's my money. Give it to me." The security guards tried to stop her, but she went crazy and started biting people. The guests were all whispering among themselves. I felt my sister's arm instantly tense up. Father's expression also darkened. I patted my sister's hand and gave her a "don't worry" look. Then, I lifted the hem of my skirt and walked down gracefully. I walked up to Kathy, looking down at her from above the security guard. She had aged, grown ugly, and reeked of a foul stench. Upon seeing me, a glint of greed flashed in her murky eyes. "Tina, I'm your mother. Look, you're so rich now. Can you give me a little, just a little? A million? No. Even 100,000 would do." I smiled, smiling sweetly and innocently. "Granny, you must have mistaken me for someone else. I'm Tina Smith. My mother is Lucy, and she's over there cutting the cake with my dad." Kathy froze. "No, I am your biological mother, biological mother. I leaned close to her, speaking softly in a voice only the two of us could hear. When you burned me to death in my past life, why didn't you think about being my biological mother then? Kathy's pupils contracted sharply, as if she had seen a ghost. She pointed at me with a trembling hand. I raised a finger to my lips. Shoo, in this lifetime, your retribution isn't over yet. I straightened up, and the expression on my face instantly turned to terror and helplessness. Uncle Security, this crazy old lady is so scary. She's cursing my dad. Hurry and get her out of here. Upon hearing this, the security guards immediately and unceremoniously grabbed Kathy and began dragging her out. No, I'm Mrs. Smith. I am. Her voice grew fainter and fainter, eventually disappearing into the night. I turned around, just in time to meet my sister's approving gaze. Dad and Aunt Lucy also walked over. Are you okay? Dad asked with concern. I linked my arm with Dad's. Smiling brightly, I'm fine, just a lunatic. Dad, cut the cake. I want to eat that biggest golden ingot decoration. Dad laughed heartily. All right, it's all yours. Under the dazzling crystal chandelier, I looked at my family beside me, the meticulous and gentle stepmother, the father who dotes on his daughter to the point of obsession, and that all-powerful hacker sister. This is the greatest treasure of my second life. As for Kathy, who cares, after all? I still have to hurry and inherit my billions of family fortune, continuing to stir up trouble in this beautiful world. Oh no, it's riding the waves. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I look exactly like my mother, from the moment I was born. I was the little princess my father held in the palm of his hand, yet, behind everyone's back. My mother used her newly made diamond-studded nails to dig viciously into my tender arm. You little thing, learning to steal a man right after you were born. You don't deserve this face. My mother detests me to the core. In my previous life, on my first birthday, she even accidentally pushed me down the stairs. After being reborn, in order to cling to my little life, I chose to spit right in her face in front of everyone. My mother's gentle and beautiful face instantly contorted, and Grandma, who had witnessed everything, had a change in her eyes. After I spat, my mother, Caroline's face instantly turned extremely ugly, but before my father, Lucas, could look over, she had already returned to that gentle, watery demeanor, her eyes slightly reddened, speaking with a pitiful tone. Why does the baby seem to dislike me? Is there something wrong with me? As she spoke, she even lifted her wrist to sniff her own scent, looking pitiful and on the verge of tears. My dad immediately pulled her into a comforting embrace, saying, Don't talk nonsense, a child that young doesn't understand anything. You're still weak from giving birth to her. Don't overthink it. I sneered inwardly. See, that's my mom's trick. She always knows how to use her beauty and fragility to step precisely on my dad's heartstrings. In my past life, I died because of my father's damnable, unprincipled favoritism, but this time, I have help. Grandma has lived for over 60 years and has seen more green tea than my mother has drunk water. She had just taken everything in, and now her eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as she spoke calmly. Children are the purest. They gravitate toward those who are genuinely good to them. Since the child doesn't like you, Caroline, you should rest and recuperate properly during this time. I'll take care of the child. The moment these words were spoken, the air in the living room seemed to freeze. Caroline's face drained of color as she stared at Grandma in disbelief, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. Mom, what do you mean by that? I'm Nancy's biological mother. How could there be any reason to keep a mother from raising her own child? I never said you couldn't raise her. Grandma's tone left no room for argument. It's just that you've just given birth, and your health is the priority. Lucas, you too. Don't spend all day focusing only on the child. Pay more attention to your wife. Grandma's words were flawlessly crafted. They expressed her determination to raise me herself, gave my father a way to save face, and subtly put Caroline in her place all at once. My dad was indeed convinced, and he persuaded Caroline, Mom is right, your health is most important. When Nancy is a bit older, it won't be too late for you to take care of her. Caroline bit her lip, the hatred in her eyes almost solidifying into something tangible. I nestled in my grandmother's arms and flashed her a toothless, utterly provocative smile. From that day on, I was taken by my grandmother to live in her courtyard. The Lincoln family was an old money household, owning a mansion with a courtyard in the prime old city district where land was worth its weight in gold. Grandma's courtyard was separated from the main building where my parents lived by a small garden. It wasn't far, but it was a safe enough distance. Caroline, of course, was not willing to accept this. Before the postpartum confinement period was even over, she would dress up beautifully every day, bringing various nourishing soups to Grandma's place, putting on a show of harmonious in-law relations and mother-daughter affection. "Mom, this is bird's nest soup I made for you myself. Mom, I came to see Nancy. Was she good today? Nancy, my darling, can Mommy give you a hug?" Every time she came, I would put on my best actress performance. As soon as she got close, I would burst into loud sobs, crying as if my heart were breaking, gasping for breath until my little face turned bright red. But the moment Grandma or Nanny Jenna picked me up, I would immediately stop crying, letting out a few pitiful sniffles while looking up at them with eyes full of dependence. After this happened several times, the entire Lincoln family came to understand. The young miss was simply born at odds with her own mother. At first, my father, Lucas, thought it was just a coincidence and tried to mediate. "Nancy, this is Mommy. Mommy loves you the most." He held me, trying to pass me into Caroline's arms. I immediately used all my strength, clinging to my father's shirt with both hands and feet, crying so loudly that my little body trembled like a leaf in the autumn wind. It was a fear that came from the depths of the soul, a shadow of death from the previous life resurfacing. My dad was startled by my reaction, frozen in place. Caught in a dilemma, Caroline's face turned pale and then flushed, her forced smile barely holding back the tears welling in her eyes. "Lucas, forget it. It's my fault, all my fault. Maybe I'm really not cut out to be a mother. Not even my own daughter dislikes me." She retreated to advance, casting herself as a pitiful victim. Grandma watched coldly from the side and spoke up at the right moment. "All right, don't push the child anymore. She's still young, maybe she's just shy around strangers. Caroline, you should go back first. Nancy needs to be fed." After seeing my parents off, Grandma held me in her arms, gently patting my back, and sighed. "Nanny Jane, don't you think the way Caroline looks at Nancy is a bit off?" Nanny Jane hesitated for a moment and whispered, "Madam, if I may speak out of turn, when the mistress looks at the little miss, there's no affection in her eyes." Grandma's gaze grew heavy. My first move was steady, but merely making Grandma suspicious wasn't enough. I needed to make my father start to waver as well, and that opportunity soon arrived. My 100 days celebration. The celebration was held with great pomp and ceremony, as the little princess of the Lincoln family. The scale was naturally grand, guests gathered in large numbers, toasting and drinking amidst a lively atmosphere. I was passed around among the adults, receiving all kinds of praise and blessings. "This child is truly beautiful, just like Lucas's wife, carved from the same mold. Look at those big eyes. She's sure to grow into a great beauty." Caroline, dressed in a custom-made champagne-colored gown with impeccable makeup, maintained a perfect hostess and happy mother's smile throughout the event. She kept trying to find opportunities to hold me, but I cleverly avoided her each time by crying. The banquet was halfway through when it came time to cut the cake. As the main character, it was only natural for me to make an appearance. Caroline, using the excuse that the child is 100 days old, so the mother should hold them, took me from my grandmother's arms. The moment she held me, she used all her strength, almost crushing me. I forced myself to endure the discomfort, knowing the main event was about to begin. She carried me over to the three-tiered cake, wearing a flawless, gentle smile as she spoke to the camera and my father. "Honey, look, how adorable our Nancy is." Lucas's gaze was filled with paternal affection as he reached out to touch my face. Just then, Caroline, holding my arm, seemingly unintentionally and with extreme subtlety, gave a forceful push toward the cake. Her target wasn't the cake, but the champagne tower beside it. If I were to knock over the champagne tower, those shattering glasses would surely cut my skin, even my eyes. A script of a mother accidentally causing her child's injury would then be perfectly staged. She could both win sympathy and conveniently shift the blame for my injury onto an accident. Unfortunately, I am no longer the ignorant and unaware infant from my previous life. The moment she exerted force, I used all my strength to suddenly tilt my head, opened my toothless mouth, and bit down on the most prominent diamond brooch on the front of her dress. That brooch was a gift from my father for their anniversary, worth a fortune, adorned with small diamonds, and its edges were somewhat sharp. I held on tightly with my teeth, then, using the force of her push, abruptly leaned backward. Rip! The sound of fabric tearing was barely noticeable amidst the clamor of the banquet hall. But the sudden chill and stinging pain at Caroline's chest instantly drained the color from her face. She instinctively looked down. Her expensive custom-made gown was torn open at the chest, the diamond brooch I had pulled now hanging precariously. The sharp metal edge had already scratched her delicate skin, drawing a faint trace of blood. More importantly, the area of her exposure was just enough to humiliate her in front of everyone. Ah! Caroline let out a short, sharp scream and released her hold on me. I took the opportunity to slip downward. Nancy, my dad and Grandma both exclaimed in shock, rushing forward in a flash. My dad, quick as lightning, caught me from below, preventing me from falling to the ground. Meanwhile, my grandma immediately checked my mouth, fearing that I might have been cut by the brooch. Of course I'm fine, it's Caroline who's in trouble. At this moment, she was in a sorry state, one hand covering her torn chest, the other still in a pushing posture, her face a mix of shock, pain, and the panic of a plan exposed. The guests whispered among themselves, and the scene descended into an awkward chaos. What's going on? Why is Mrs. Lou's clothes torn? It seems like the child grabbed it. This child's strength is really too great. Oh dear, it's even bleeding. Caroline reacted extremely quickly. She immediately reddened her eyes, her voice choked with tears. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have worn this brooch. I almost hurt the baby. As she spoke, she looked pitifully at my father, trying once again to use her fragility to win sympathy. If it were before, my father would have rushed over to comfort her immediately, then blamed everything on an accident. But this time, he didn't. Holding me, he took a step back, creating distance between himself and Caroline. His brows were tightly furrowed, his gaze filled with scrutiny. He had seen it clearly just moments before. Before Caroline screamed, her movement was a very obvious push forward. It wasn't the posture of a mother protecting her child, it was more like she was trying to throw something away. And I, a mere 100-day-old infant, how could I possibly have had the strength to tear the clothes at her chest so precisely? None of this made any sense. After checking my mouth and confirming I was unharmed, Grandma shot a sharp glance at Caroline. Caroline, what were you trying to do just now? Caroline stiffened, her tears falling even harder. Mom, I didn't mean to do anything, it's just that Nancy suddenly moved. I got startled, and my hand slipped. Grandma sneered. Does a slipped hand send a child toward a champagne tower? These words exploded in my father's mind like a thunderclap. He abruptly looked at the teetering champagne tower, then at Caroline's deathly pale face, as a terrifying thought uncontrollably forced its way into his mind. The situation was at a stalemate. Caroline's tears were my father's weakness, and I feared he would soften his heart once again. I clung to my father's embrace, using every ounce of my will to stare intently at my grandmother, silently screaming in my heart, Grandma, believe your eyes. She was trying to push me into that pile of glass cups. She wants to ruin me. I was merely clinging to a faint glimmer of hope, praying desperately in the face of despair. However, in the very next second, Grandma's body jolted violently, her hand gripping the table tightened, and her face instantly turned deathly pale, as if she had heard something utterly terrifying. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes filled with horror. Then, she spoke word by word, her voice not loud, yet it clearly carried to every corner of the room. Caroline, did you want my granddaughter to run into that pile of glasses? Grandma's words were exactly the same as the cry in my heart. I widened my eyes in shock. She heard it. Caroline's face completely drained of color. Mom, what are you saying? How could I? You wouldn't. Grandma looked at my father. Lucas, don't let a woman's tears cloud your judgment. Tell me, what is a mother's instinctive reaction? To pull her child toward herself, or to push them toward danger? My father held me, his body rigid, his lips moving but unable to utter a single word. Reason told him that his mother was right, but emotionally, he couldn't accept that his gentle and kind wife would do such a cruel thing to her own daughter. The banquet had already descended into chaos. The butler hurried over to restore order and guide the guests away. Grandma no longer paid attention to Caroline, who was still trying to explain herself. She walked over to my father and firmly took me from his arms. From today onward, I will be fully responsible for Nancy, without my permission. No one is allowed to come near my granddaughter. Holding me, she turned and left without another word. Back in Grandma's courtyard, even Jinx&My was sent away, leaving only the two of us, grandmother and granddaughter, alone in the room. Grandma held me on the sofa, looking at me with a complicated expression, shock, tenderness, and a trace of undisguised curiosity. Just now, was that you? She asked softly, as if questioning me, yet also as if speaking to herself. I couldn't answer, only screaming desperately in my heart, *Grandma, it's me, you must protect me, *. Grandma closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, her gaze was clear and resolute. Good child, Grandma understands, don't be afraid, as long as Grandma is here, no one can harm you. From that day on, the sky over the Lincoln family changed. Using the excuse that I was frightened and needed quiet rest, Grandma prevented Caroline from seeing me. She even installed the most advanced surveillance cameras inside and outside my nursery, providing 24/7, all-angle coverage. My father was caught in the middle, torn between both sides and utterly miserable. He tried talking to my grandmother a few times, but each time she shut him down with, "If you still consider me your mother, don't speak up for that malicious woman." Caroline, on the other hand, fully embraced the victim role, crying all day and rapidly losing weight. My father was heartbroken, but the bizarre scene at the 100-day celebration left him with lingering doubts. For the first time, an irreparable rift had appeared between the couple. As for me, under my grandmother's protective wing, I began to live a safe and comfortable life. Of course, this period did not last long. One day, as I was playing with the rattle my grandmother had bought for me in my crib, Nanny Jane walked in holding an exquisitely wrapped box. "Madam, this was sent by the lady. A gift for the young miss, as an apology for what happened at the 100-day banquet." Grandma opened the box to reveal a hand-knitted cashmere blanket, embroidered with my name, Nancy, in golden thread. The blanket was soft, comfortable, and beautiful, seemingly filled with maternal love. But when I saw that blanket, an overwhelming sense of suffocation instantly washed over me. In my previous life, Caroline also gave me an identical blanket. I loved it so much back then. I had to sleep with it every day. Then, I started breaking out in unexplained rashes, struggling to breathe, and crying every night. The doctor simply said it was infantile eczema, a sensitive constitution. My mother was utterly exhausted from taking care of me, which made my father's heart ache. Looking back now, that wasn't eczema at all, it was chronic allergic damage. Wah! I cried out in terror, scrambling backward on my hands and feet, putting as much distance as possible between myself and that blanket, as if it were some kind of ferocious beast. "What's going on here?" Nanny Jane asked, puzzled. Grandma furrowed her brow, recalling my unusual behavior at the 100-day celebration, and immediately grew alert. Holding me, she tentatively moved the blanket closer to my face. I immediately cried even harder, my little face flushed bright red, my whole body trembling. "No, Grandma, the blanket is poisoned. She put something harmful in it. I can't breathe, I'm going to die," I screamed frantically in my heart. Grandma's face suddenly changed. She heard it again. This time, the voice was clearer than before, and it was filled with fear. Without a word, she immediately threw the blanket far away, then held me tightly, softly comforting me. Don't be afraid, Nancy." Grandma threw the bad thing away. By the time I had calmed down, Grandma's eyes were as cold as ice. She picked up the phone and called my dad directly. "Lucas, you get back here right now, this instant." When my dad rushed back, his face was grim. He probably thought it was just another routine clash between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. "Mom, what's wrong again? Caroline already knows she was wrong, so you just..." Before he could finish, Grandma flung the cashmere blanket directly onto the coffee table in front of him. "Take a look at this." "It's just a blanket," my father said, confused. "Caroline sent it over, said it was an apology for Nancy." Grandma's voice was devoid of any warmth, but the moment Nancy saw it, she cried so hard she nearly passed out. My father's brow furrowed. "The child is young, maybe she just doesn't like this color." "Doesn't like it?" Grandma sneered. "Is it the same kind of doesn't like as on the 100-day celebration?" My father choked on his words. I lay on Grandma's shoulder, watching my father still trying to defend Caroline, and felt a wave of sorrow in my heart. "Dad, there's ground nut powder in the blanket. In my past life, because of this, I suffered for a whole 6 months, which eventually triggered severe asthma." My voice, through the miraculous connection between my grandmother and me, was transmitted clearly to her. Grandma tightened her arms around me, looking at her son with deep disappointment in her eyes. "Lucas, I just want to ask you one thing. In your heart, is your daughter's life more important, or your wife's tears?" "Mom, how can you even compare the two?" "Fine, then I'll make you see clearly." Right in front of my dad, Grandma took out her phone and dialed one of her private doctors. "Dr. Wang, could you come over? Please bring the allergen testing equipment with you." "Yes, I need to test a blanket." An hour later, Dr. Wang, our family physician, arrived at the house with professional equipment. In front of my father, he took samples from that beautiful cashmere blanket for testing. The waiting process felt like an eternity with each passing second. My father's expression shifted from impatience to confusion, and then to solemnity. When the results came out and Dr. Wang looked up with a drastically changed expression, my father's heart sank to the bottom. "Madam, sir," Dr. Wang's voice carried a hint of lingering fear, "this blanket contains a significant concentration of crushed peanuts. If an infant with an existing allergy comes into contact with it, it could cause severe rashes at best, and at worst, potentially lead to anaphylactic shock." My father seemed as if all the strength had been drained from his body. He staggered back a step, bumping into the cabinet behind him. He stared in disbelief at the motherly love-filled blanket, then looked at me. The eerie scene at the 100-day celebration, Grandma's hoarse and desperate questioning, my terrified cries every time I saw Caroline, and now this ironclad evidence before us, all the fragments finally pieced together at this moment, forming a truth that sent chills down his spine. His wife, my gentle and beautiful mother, had truly been trying to kill her own biological daughter, again and again. He turned without a word and strode toward the main building. Caroline's good days had come to an end. My father rushed out, his back radiating overwhelming fury. Grandma held me in her arms and did not follow. She knew that some truths had to be torn open by his own hands to be truly unforgettable. Even in the side courtyard where we were, we could faintly hear Caroline's piercing cries and a man's furious roars coming from the main building. "I didn't, Lucas. You have to believe me. Someone is trying to frame me. It's Mom, it must be her." "How could my mother possibly frame you?" "By embroidering nut powder into the carpet." "Caroline, do you think I'm a fool?" "I don't know, I really don't know." "Lucas, look at me, I'm your Caroline, I love you so much, how could I ever harm our daughter?" "Shut up, don't call my name, it makes me sick." Then came the deafening crash of shattered porcelain, followed by Caroline's even more piercing wails. I nestled in Grandma's arms, my heart completely unmoved. In my previous life, these cries and performances were my death warrant. My father softened his heart time and again, choosing to believe her over and over, while all that awaited me was death. In this life, I will not give him another chance to waver. I said to my grandmother in my heart, "Grandma, actually, I have been reborn twice, and both times I became your granddaughter, but in my previous life, I was always sick, struggling to breathe." On the day of my first birthday celebration, she pushed me down the stairs from the second floor. I don't know how much Grandma could hear, but I could only tell her the cause of my death in my previous life in the most straightforward way. I was just a baby, unable to provide evidence, and could only beg for the trust and protection of my family. Grandma's hands holding me trembled uncontrollably. Her face was even gloomier than the sky outside. She held me, slowly stood up, and step by step walked back to the battlefield of the main building. When we appeared at the living room doorway, what we saw was a scene of utter chaos. My father's eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged lion, while Caroline knelt on the floor with disheveled hair, her expensive dress covered in dust, tears streaming down her face as she pitifully clung to my father's pant leg. "Lucas, believe me one more time, just one last time." When my father saw us, the fury in his eyes turned into endless pain and guilt. He looked at me, his lips trembling, but not a single word came out. Grandma's voice was as cold and hard as iron. "Lucas, divorce her." Caroline was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, letting out a sharp scream. "No, I don't agree. I gave birth to a daughter for the Lincoln family. You can't treat me like this." "Gave birth to a daughter, only to kill her with your own hands." Grandmother's gaze was like a knife, piercing straight into Caroline's heart. "Caroline, I don't care who you really are or what your intentions are. From today onward, you will stay in this house and not take a single step outside, not until the divorce papers are signed." This was meant to keep her under house arrest. Caroline was completely panicked. She lunged forward frantically, but my father grabbed her arm and shoved her away with force. "Someone," my father roared, "take away Madam's phone, computer, and anything she can use to contact the outside world. Without my permission, she is not to leave her room even half a step." Bodyguards immediately swarmed in. Amid desperate cries and curses, Caroline was forcibly taken upstairs. This farce ended temporarily with her crushing defeat. Caroline was placed under house arrest. On the surface, the Lincoln family remained calm, with the servants sworn to secrecy, but beneath it all, undercurrents were already surging. My father was despondent for several days, shutting himself in his study all day long. Only when he saw me did a flicker of life appear in his eyes. He held me, apologizing over and over again. "I'm sorry, Nancy, it's Dad's fault. Dad let you down." His stubble tickled me a little, but I didn't cry or fuss. Instead, I quietly reached out my small hand and touched his face, a man in his 30s. His eyes instantly reddened. I know that although this man is muddle-headed, his love for me is genuine. For now, all household matters are decided by my grandmother. She acted swiftly and decisively, and the first thing she did was to clear out all the baby items that Caroline had bought or handled, leaving not a single one behind. Then, she moved my sleeping room from the first floor to the one next to hers. After doing all this, she held me close and whispered in my ear, "Nancy, tell Grandma, what else do you know? That woman, why would she do such a thing?" Grandma's voice was soft, filled with confusion. She had completely believed in the special connection between us and had begun actively seeking information from me. I closed my eyes, trying hard to recall the memories from my past life. In my previous life, I died at the age of 1, but my soul lingered around the Lincoln family, staying for many years. As my soul gradually matured, I came to understand Caroline's malice toward me and the Lincoln family, and I also uncovered the truth behind my own death, of course. I also overheard some secrets that Caroline inadvertently revealed. Grandma, check her background. I thought to myself, there's something off about her origins. When Caroline married into the Lincoln family, she claimed to come from a scholarly background, with parents who were university professors and a well-off family. My father was so infatuated with her that he never bothered to look deeper. But I had seen with my own eyes, Caroline calling a slovenly, degenerate gambler, brother. Grandma's gaze instantly turned sharp. If even her background is fake, then this woman's schemes are far from just vying for favor. All right, Grandma understands. Grandma immediately made a call and hired the most skilled private detective in the entire city. The investigation results came faster and were more shocking than we had imagined. 3 days later, a thick investigative report was placed before Grandma and my father. Held in Grandma's arms, I also saw the contents of the report. Caroline, originally named Helen, she was born into a family in a remote mountainous area that placed extreme importance on sons over daughters. She had a good-for-nothing, gambling-addicted older brother named David. Her parents, in order to scrape together a bride price for their son and pay off his gambling debts, wanted to sell her off to an old bachelor in the village once she came of age. Helen refused to accept her fate and fled overnight. From then on, her life's record became a hazy blank, until 5 years ago, she transformed into the elite returnee, Caroline, and appeared at a business cocktail party, coincidentally, meeting my father, Lucas. The report also included a few blurry photos of Caroline meeting a man in a cafe. That man was also known to my father. He was Lin Wei, the second son of the Lin Group. Our Lincoln family's archrival. Lin Wei and my father were college classmates, competing with each other in every aspect since their student days. After entering the business world, their rivalry only intensified, becoming a life-and-death struggle. In recent years, the Lin Group has employed numerous underhanded tactics, snatching several major projects from the Lincoln family and leaving my father utterly overwhelmed. The moment he saw the photo, my father's face darkened completely, the atmosphere around him dropping to a terrifyingly low pressure. What more was there to understand? This is an out-and-out scam, a corporate spy, a meticulously arranged honey trap. Caroline married him, not out of love at all. Her goal was to bring down the Lincoln family. My birth was not a surprise to her, but a huge accident that ruined her plans. That's why she wanted to get rid of me, because my existence would strengthen her relationship with my father, making it harder for her to break free and easier for her to be exposed. That venomous woman. My father slammed his fist on the table, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. She's been playing me for a fool for 5 whole years. The anger of being deceived, the humiliation of being used, and the lingering fear of how close I had come to losing my life. These 3 heavy burdens completely crushed him. Grandma's face was also extremely grim. She held me in her arms, gently patting my back, as if to comfort me, and perhaps to comfort herself as well. Grandma, Lin Wei gave her a large sum of money for her brother to squander outside. As long as the Lincoln family is ruined, Lin Wei will marry her. I added the final piece of the puzzle that I knew. Grandma closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them again, her gaze was icy cold. "Lucas," she said calmly, "now is not the time for anger. Call the police. We can't just let this go." My father took a deep breath. Forcing himself to calm down, he looked at the investigation report, then at me, a flicker of ruthlessness flashing in his eyes. "No, Mom, just calling the police like that would be letting her off too easy," he said, word by word. "I want them to be utterly disgraced and left with nothing." What he wanted wasn't legal punishment, but complete revenge. In the following days, my dad seemed like a completely different person. He was no longer despondent, nor in pain. His entire being was frighteningly calm. First, he had the surveillance on Caroline relaxed, even returning her phone to her. Having been confined for several days, Caroline thought my father had softened, and she began to stir up trouble again. She called her dubious friends to complain, saying my grandmother was a wicked mother-in-law who couldn't tolerate her and was forcing her to divorce. She also secretly contacted her brother, David, asking him to come to the Lincoln family and cause trouble. To back her up, David had long been spoiled by Lin Wei's money, and upon receiving his sister's plea for help, he immediately gathered a few local thugs and stormed over to the Lincoln family with a menacing air. "Open the door. What right do you have to bully my sister? Let me tell you, our Smith family isn't to be trifled with," he shouted and yelled at the door, drawing the attention of many neighbors who gathered to watch. My father sat in front of the surveillance screen in the living room, watching the scene coldly, a mocking smile curling at the corner of his mouth. He didn't have the security guards stop him. Instead, he ordered the main gate to be opened and had David invited inside. As soon as David stepped into the house and saw the opulent living room, his eyes widened in awe. Feeling even more emboldened, he planted his hands on his hips and said to my father, "So you're my brother-in-law, let me tell you. Release my sister right now and give our family $1,000,000 in compensation for emotional distress, or this isn't over." My father took a slow sip of tea and asked calmly, "$1,000,000, in your eyes, is your sister only worth that much?" My sister was a pure, untouched maiden when she married you," David shouted, his neck stiff with indignation. "Is that so?" My father chuckled lightly and tossed a document in front of him. "Then take a look at what your pure, untouched maiden of a sister has been doing behind my back." Inside the document were intimate photos of Caroline and Lin Wei, along with records of financial transactions between her bank account and the Lin Group. "The evidence is irrefutable." David's face instantly turned from flushed to deathly pale. "He may be a scoundrel, but he's not stupid." He knew that if this matter were exposed, not only would the $1,000,000 be gone, but both he and his sister would end up in prison. This is fabricated. You're framing my sister." He still wanted to put up a tough front. "Forgery." My father stood up, looking down at him with a cold gaze. "You can take this and leave now, or I'll call the police right away and let them verify its authenticity. Choose for yourself." David's legs went weak, and he nearly collapsed to the floor. He stared at my father, trembling, unable to utter a single word. In the end, clutching the evidence that could ruin both him and his sister, he slunk away in disgrace. I knew this was only the first step of my father's plan. What he wanted was to make Caroline completely isolated, to turn her greatest reliance into the sharpest blade that would stab her deepest. David ran off with the evidence. Instead of going to Caroline for confirmation, he immediately took the evidence to Lin Wei. He wanted to extort a sum of hush money and then disappear for good, and this played right into my father's hands. My father had long anticipated that a selfish gambler like David would be the first to betray his own sister in the face of a crisis. Lin Wei never expected that his flawless plan would be exposed in such a manner. He was even more surprised to learn that my father held such irrefutable evidence in his hands. After a desperate round of threats and bargaining, Lin Wei ultimately paid a hefty sum to David to buy back the evidence. He thought everything was settled, but he didn't know that my father had already made countless copies and had anonymously sent one to the chairman of the Lin Group, Lin Wei's strict and rigid old father. At the same time, my father began a full-scale counterattack against the Lin Group in the business world. He used the confidential information that Caroline had leaked to Lin Wei over the past few years to set up one trap after another in reverse. The Lin Group suffered consecutive crushing defeats in several crucial bidding wars, causing its stock price to plummet and throwing the company into internal chaos. Chairman Lin had already been dissatisfied with Lin Wei's capabilities, and after receiving that anonymous material, he flew into a rage. At an emergency board meeting, he threw the documents right in Lin Wei's face in front of all the shareholders, angrily denouncing him, "Using a woman, resorting to such despicable means, you've brought shame upon the entire Lin family." Lin Wei was immediately stripped of all his positions and was unceremoniously driven out of the Lin Group. Utterly disgraced, he was finished. Meanwhile, Caroline, who was at the Lincoln family, remained completely unaware of all this. She was still waiting for her brother and lover to stand up for her and take her away from this cage. Until that day, my father threw a signed divorce agreement and a newspaper right in front of her. The front page headline of the newspaper was a bombshell. The stock price of the Lin Group had plummeted, and the second son of the Lin family had been expelled from the company due to personal conduct issues. Caroline looked at the newspaper, then at the cold terms of the divorce agreement. She was to leave with nothing, not even a single strand of hair to take with her. All her hopes, all her reliance, crumbled completely in that moment. No, it can't be, she murmured to herself, her face as pale as paper. Lin Wei wouldn't do this to me. He promised he would marry me. My father looked at her coldly, as if watching a clownish performer. He can hardly protect himself now. Do you really think he'll still care about you, Caroline, or should I call you Helen? Your act is over. Caroline suddenly raised her head, her eyes filled with a wild hatred. She stared fixedly at my father, then looked past him and saw me, cradled in my grandmother's arms. An intense wave of malice instantly enveloped me. I felt a sudden pang of fear. Grandma, she's gone mad. She wants to take me down with her. I had just screamed those words in my heart when I saw Caroline, like a crazed beast, spring up from the ground with a shriek, dart around my father, and charge straight at me. I'm going to kill you, you little bitch. You shouldn't have survived. Why aren't you a boy? What's so great about a money-losing girl? Why do you all love and cherish her so much? She should be just like me, cursed by her own mother, beaten by her own father. Why don't you just die? Why don't you just die? Her nails were long and sharp, gleaming coldly under the light, aimed right at my eyes. Everything happened too fast. My dad didn't even have time to turn around. At that critical moment, Jinx&My, who had been standing silently by the side, suddenly moved. She took a swift step forward, turned sideways to shield me and Grandma, then executed a clean and precise hold, instantly twisting Caroline's arm behind her back. With a forceful twist, she pressed her firmly to the ground. The entire sequence flowed seamlessly, so fast it was almost a blur. Everyone in the living room was stunned, including my father. No one expected that this seemingly ordinary nanny would be so remarkably skilled. Truly, a master does not reveal their true form. Caroline was pinned to the ground, still struggling frantically. Watching Caroline, who had fallen into a frenzy, I wanted to know why she hated me so much, even wishing for my death. Even if she had escaped her patriarchal family of origin, she was still deeply affected by it. Having never experienced parental love herself, she could not allow her own daughter to receive it. She had truly gone mad. Grandma held me, her heart still trembling with fear, her face deathly pale, but soon calmed down. She glanced at Caroline, who was still roaring on the ground, and said to Aunt Jane, "Thank you for your hard work. Clean this up." "Yes," Aunt Jane nodded, dragging Caroline out and locking her in the basement. The living room fell silent again. Grandma held me and walked over to the sofa to sit down, letting out a soft sigh. The fright from earlier still had her heart pounding wildly. My dad walked over, his face full of guilt and lingering fear. "Mom, I'm sorry. I never expected her to go crazy." "It's not your fault." Grandma shook her head. "I underestimated just how vicious she could be." She looked at me, her eyes filled with tenderness. "Thank goodness Nancy is all right." I reached out my little hand and touched Grandma's face, saying to her in my heart, "Grandma, don't be afraid." Grandma's gaze softened. She knew this was her little granddaughter comforting her. With things having come to this, my father no longer had any hesitation. He called the lawyer and went through the divorce proceedings as quickly as possible. Caroline was left with nothing, and my father also submitted all the evidence of her collusion with Lin Wei in commercial fraud, as well as the evidence of their intentional harm to me, to the police. Caroline and Lin Wei were arrested in accordance with the law on suspicion of multiple charges. What awaits them will be the severe punishment of the law. As for David, after taking Lin Wei's hush money, he immediately vanished without a trace. It is said that he lost all reason in some underground casino, had his hands and feet chopped off, and could only linger on in the dark corners for the rest of his life. Evil begets its own retribution. The turmoil within the Lincoln family finally came to an end. Life has returned to its proper course, even better than before, without Caroline, that two-faced mistress of the house. The air at home feels much fresher. My father poured all his energy into work and spending time with me, and the guilt and affection in his eyes grew stronger with each passing day, and the secret between my grandmother and me brought us, grandmother and grandson, even closer. She is my most steadfast guardian angel, and I, her most considerate little cotton-padded jacket. This time, I will definitely grow up safe and sound. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.